Welcome to the Point of No Return podcast, an exploration of strategy, leadership, technology, and entrepreneurship. Your host, Nectar, is the co-founder and partner at the PNR, a strategy consulting firm based in Montreal.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Point of No Return podcast, a show where we interview CEOs, presidents, and industry leaders to really try and understand how they think about strategy. And on today's show, I really had a great conversation with Claudine Labelle, founder and president at FitSpirit. So maybe a bit of a disclaimer, Claudine and I got to geek out on bicycles, something I haven't really spoken about a lot, but yeah, I like bikes, and Claudine is a former pro. So we really dove into a little bit about that past. But on top of being a former elite athlete, she's a social entrepreneur whose mission is to encourage a generation of teenage girls to take responsibility for their own health and well-being. She's spearheading efforts to promote physical activity and healthy eating, a subject that's very near and dear to my heart. And so far, she's had a significant impact. FitSpirit has reached more than 150,000 young women in Quebec and Ontario. And in addition to having success with FitSpirit, Claudine's hard work and energy has earned her numerous awards and recognition in philanthropic and social enterprise communities. We really had a wide-ranging conversation where we spoke about how she helped find her passion to help teenage girls, being a competitor in the world of cycling, which I obviously enjoyed, her nonprofit's mission and the impact that they create, and how they partner with the corporate world. And this piece was interesting, is she really approaches her nonprofit like a for-profit corporation and sets objectives along that vein. It was the first time I met Claudine, and she was really a true inspiration, and she shared some amazing insights. I hope that you enjoy the episode. I think a natural place for us to start, Claudine, is our shared love of bikes. So I saw that in your profile, and I'm like, yes, finally a guest where we can just geek out on talking about bikes. So I guess my first question would be, what kind of bike do you ride?
I actually ride an Argon 18, which is a Quebec company, and I love this bike. It's a carbon bike as well, and it's the same one that I used to race with. So it's been a very old bike, but dearly loved.
Yeah, Argon 18 is really, I think, one of the key brands in Quebec when it comes to biking. I was curious, how did you get into racing? Like, you started at a young age, I believe, right?
My dad was such a passionate rider, and each time he was going out, I was dreaming about one day being able to go with him. And I was taking my super old Skyline bike that he bought for me from Sears, and I was trying to impress him with all the tricks I could do so he could take me on with him. And then one day he told me, he said, "Listen, Claudine, I'll take you for a ride, but you need to come with me to Mont Saint-Anne and show me that you can ride the mountain all the way up. And then I'll buy you a brand new bike and we can go for some more." So I was so fiercely determined to reach the top. I worked super hard, and then finally I managed to get there just to impress him. But I can't say that it was the most pleasant experience.
No, I can imagine. It's a hell of a mountain too.
It is a
What's
hell of
the
a
elevation?
mountain. I do not recall. I think it's close to 900 meters.
Wow, yeah.
And but it's very technical. And the day that we came back, believe me, once we were done with the ride, I told him right away. I said, "So, when are we getting this new bike?" So that's when we really started riding together, road bike, mountain bike, and everything. And for me, it was just this amazing time to spend with my dad. Common passion, so much to share with him. And you know that when you're riding, you talk about so many things, right? Of course, you're suffering when you go up the hills, but after there's a lot you can talk about.
Yeah. At what age did you start competing?
I started riding with my dad officially around 10, and then I started really competing, which is quite interesting. I started competing in triathlon when I was about 11, and then triathlon was a big thing back then. Was doing also cross-country skiing, a fair amount. And I was also an avid soccer player. My dad taught me a lot about the importance of performing in whatever I was doing, but also loving what I was doing. And so it brought me to a certain extent that I was always pushing myself, but for the love of the sports and not because of the pressure. And I got to enjoy so many great experiences. But interestingly enough, when I got to my teenage years, I did most teenage girls would do, is I dropped out of sports for many reasons. And one of them is I wanted to be able to socialize with my friends, and most of them were not active. So I actually put my bike aside and I stopped cross-country skiing, even though I was performing at a very good level. I was in the provincial, I was racing at a provincial level. And I said, let's put a stop to that. And I was in a AAA league in soccer as well. So, and I stopped everything all of a sudden.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it seems that you picked it back up as a young adult, right? Because you were competing at an early age, or did I misunderstand?
No, I actually picked it back up because of an amazing teacher.
Okay.
So when I actually stopped racing, I stopped doing sports. I also disconnected from my own personal dream, which is quite interesting. You never think there's a strong link between sports and, academic and goal achievements, but it is so strongly connected. I was super good at school, but when I stopped sports, I also stopped being good at school. I started doing some stuff that I shouldn't be doing. And there's one teacher that saw me, and it took a while. I was 17. I was in secondaire 5. And she said to me, Claudine, you know what? You're not on the right path. I think you and I, just go out for runs, just for the fun, just so we can have chats and enjoy ourselves. And then I started running, and I kind of reconnected with the sport, and I realized how much I loved it and how much it was bringing to me as a person, and how much I was feeling better about who I was, with a clearer vision of where I wanted to go.
Yeah. Do you think without that teacher, you would have fallen back into that and, finding that passion?
I don't think so. I really think I was going in the wrong direction. But this same teacher is still in my life, which is really good. And she also inspired me to motivate other girls, like the work that I'm doing today, because her main mission as a teacher was to inspire teenage girls to be active.
Yeah, and I definitely want to talk about your nonprofit and FitSpirit, or philanthropic in French. But I want to go back to performance. You mentioned about the importance of performance, and then how you then became almost a professional rider, if I understand. But you're on the path too.
So when I reached college, I started training very hard. I did a duathlon, and then I wanted to become a triathlete as well. So I did actually, I got selected for the national team twice in duathlon, which is pretty good. I did the World Championship in Calais, and I was supposed to do the one in Italy, but it was September 11, 2001 when I was about to take the plane. So my flight got canceled. I never made it to the World Championship that day. And I decided along the way, while I was training in duathlon, to start swimming, because I wanted to be able to do a sport that was really recognized by the Olympic Committee. So eventually I would maybe have a chance to join the team. And I was a horrible swimmer, like the most horrible swimmer ever. And I was swimming with this college coach, and he was like the nicest person, because he gave me a chance to try it, and just to say, you know what, Claudine, maybe you can make it happen, but take your time. And I was so determined, and I was so proud of myself. Like, you're swimming there with other kids who are super good swimmer, and I was like, there's no way I can be left behind. So at the end of the day, he actually invited me to join his own club. And I started racing with them, and the kids were between 11 and 17, and they were kicking my butt, like seriously. But I got so determined that I actually ended up within 2 years started to swim, and at 1,500 meters, which is a good distance for the Olympic triathlete, I was under the 21 minutes mark, which is really good. But this coach I got so close to, he offered me also to coach kids, and that club was in an underprivileged area. So at the same time that I was aiming for performance, I was having those kids twice a week who were literally fighting for their own chance in life. And they didn't have much encouragement at home. And here you go, they were coming at the swimming pool hoping for something better. So as much as I was valuing the medal, the podium, as much as I realized that sports was beyond all that. It was about changing the lives of people around you. And those kids totally changed my visions of sports. And I wanted to get closer to them. And I wanted to work better on helping them being better people. It took me time. It took me about a year to work with them, but I saw such a difference. And I was so proud of them because, you know, it's like you can only imagine the typical image. You were coming to the swimming pool with like this super attitude and, you know, the what's up, and, you know, I got it all, right? And then at the end of the year, there was respect, there was fun, we were laughing, we were achieving our goals, and they were so much looking forward for the following year.
And when did you realize that, you know, helping others, particularly young students, young athletes, was going to be your life's mission? Was it a gradual process that you said all of a sudden I'm going to do this, or was it like a flash that you decided?
I think those kids put me on the path of the thought process of what I really wanted to do in life. But it's interesting. Like most dreams of most objectives that you're giving yourself, sometimes you're getting sucked into other things or the routines or other objectives, and you tend to forget that the real things you want to work around was those young kids. That was the thing I wanted to do. But being a competitive athlete was so important for me that I actually put aside that dream to achieve my own personal goal. And I got into, again, racing and so on. And I moved to Toronto to train at a high level. And then that's when I decided to put aside the triathlon objectives and go really just for road cycling and just go for it and race with the girls there. And I had tons of fun. I raced for a team called Team BioVel, and it's owned by Eugene Melnick.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so the owner of BioVel. And the senator of Ottawa.
I was going to say,
well.
yeah, he owns the senators. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I raced for him for 2 years. It was such a blast. Good experience. And as you know, it's interesting as an athlete when you get into a new sport, especially cycling, because when you work as a team, there are different roles. And obviously you always have your ego. You want to be in the front. You want to be the leader. You want to be this and that. And I had all the big, all the big thinking of who I should be, in life, especially when I was writing. And it was obviously not the same thing that I was envisioning myself doing. So I started as, the servant of the team because I was literally carrying the bottle for the other riders. And despite I wanted to be one of the leader, I had to put aside my own personal objective and always think of the team first. And so the goal was to have my team leaders winning and not me winning. And it was my results didn't really matter at the end of the day whether or not I was finishing the race. So it was such a good learning experience, especially in the workplace for later on. Understanding that my place was not always as a leader, that I had also to bring my other players in front of the stage so they could play their own role. And cycling is like playing chess. So you always have to be extremely strategic on who you're going to play first and how you're going to play them and who is going to just drag the peloton. And so for me, those lessons were just amazing. I really did enjoy riding my bike with those girls. And when you're riding so much for performance, at one point you need to also have your own time. And I actually asked my coach, I said, listen, the fall is our downtime. Normally we're trying to do other things, but I have this crazy dream. I'd love to take a very old bike and put some luggages on it. And I want to travel over in Europe. I want to just go by myself. And I was just about to get married as well. And I said, I need a break from everyone, everything, And so I took my bike, flew all the way up to Lisbon. And then I started riding, following the coast. I went to the Algarve in Portugal. I did all the south of Spain, Sevilla, Granada. Took a little break in Granada and went to do the Sierra Nevada, which was amazing climbing. And then I'll follow the coast again, Spain, France, Italy. And then I went all the way down to Sicily, 5,500 kilometers later. And this trip gave me so many great opportunity to think about who I really want to be in life. And you don't realize that by being surrounded by people who loves you every single day, it's also a cushion of your life. They actually protect you from risks that you would want to take. But when you're by yourself, you need to make your own decisions. And I was willing then to take more risk. And I realized that this ability of taking risk was also very important to me. It's certainly something that I would have to maintain in my own future life, because it was so transformative for those 4 months to be by myself, to ride 80 to 160 kilometers a day. And very often I didn't realize that sometimes I wouldn't see one human being in some location, but all the reflection and all the talk I had to do to myself to think about what was life all about. Is it about being on a podium? Is it about helping others? Or is it about, a career in the business world? And I realized that I wanted to have it all. And that's what I came up with is, you know what? I will perform still on my bike, but I will also make sure that I keep some time for those kids that really changed my own personal life. And when I came back to Toronto, I came back with all this enthusiasm and this desire to change everything. And 6 months into the training, it was in June, 3 days before a really, really big race, the Philly Classic that you probably know of. I was riding my bike going down the hill, super nice summer day. And there's a car. I was just pointing that it was going left, and obviously he saw me and I saw him. But he came right at me for no specific reasons. And, like me, when you're a rider, you're so used to crash that the first thing you're doing is like opening up your eyes when you're on the ground, looking at your bike and to make sure that your bike is okay. But this time around, I opened my eyes and obviously I could hear a lot of people screaming or talking, because obviously that was not the right crash I should have had. And then I turned my body and it was aching so much, so much. But I managed to have a quick look to the top of the bike, and the bike wasn't doing so well. It was all broken in pieces. And that was heartbreaking. But my body was aching so much, and I knew there was something wrong there. And so for me, that was, I think, the most devastating part, knowing that I wouldn't be able to ride. I thought for a while, but I didn't think it would take so long for me to recover.
Yeah. Looking back, fast forward, obviously that kind of crash ended your career and led you to start your own company. How do you reflect on that crash today? Do you look back on it with regret, with a sense of optimism that it led you to a different path? I was curious to see with a bit of hindsight.
There's a whole thing about failure, right? That leads you to greater success. And for me, this accident was probably the best thing ever. See, I think we all have a book in our hands, and we tend to think that, it's already written, that we are, when I was 7 years old, I wanted to become an athlete, and this is where I was going to go. And obviously the next page would talk about sports again, and then the next page again. But this time around, in my book, when I turned the page was blank. There was nothing. It's like climbing a mountain, and you're all the way up, and then you look back and you realize that you don't have any ropes. You have to keep on going. You have to stay focused. You should not lose sight of the top of the mountain. If not, you're going to crash. But how can you do it if you don't have all your abilities physically, mentally, that there's some impairment that happened along the way? For me, my brain was impaired, which was extremely hard to deal with, and my body, obviously, too. But my husband was so supportive during that period of time that I think he was the most important pillar to bring me back up and to let me believe that I could be a better person, a better me after the accident.
Yeah. And how soon after did you come up with the idea? Did you found FitSpirit?
So when I actually met, I met the same neurosurgeon as Eric Landros in Toronto to really have a final diagnosis to know whether or not I would be able to race again. And he said to me, it's over. You're not going back. You even have to make sure that you're not hitting your head swimming against the wall, That was okay. Well, that's another level. What will I do? And I thought about those kids. That's when things came around. And I started reading because I was very limited on my reading, but I still was very curious to learn about what was happening across Canada for kids and physical activity overall. And some stats that I came across with really blew my mind. So 1 girl out of 2 is dropping out of sports by the time they reach puberty. Exactly the same way as I did a few years back. And only 10% of them are still active when they reach the age of 17. And I was like, okay, there's a huge dropout. What is happening in the school system that could prevent that? And I started looking around with the government, with the school systems and everything, and there was nothing specifically for the girls around physical activity and their well-being. And that's when I really decided to start FitSpirit. And we have to keep in mind that the role of FitSpirit, and it's still the same thing as today, is not about performance. It's about being active for life. So when I look at the teenage girls that are still active today as adults, will be active forever. And it's being shown, which is quite interesting, it's been shown that if girls are active during their teenage years, they will most likely be active as adults, where the other way around for boys is not the same thing. So that's when I actually decided to take a really different approach for girls than boys, so I could really have a tangible outcomes and address the problematic in a very specific way. It was not a question of saying, oh, I am a feminist, I'm going to defend, and no, it was about, there's an issue, how can we address it to make sure that those girls are active? What are the barriers that are preventing them from being active? Well, one of them, their body is changing, and they're not comfortable with it, not in front of boys. The other thing is they need to have fun. So how can we make sure that they have a surrounding that will help them discover all sorts of physical activity with their friends. They don't have the right role models. Well, how can we train amazing role models that could be accessible to them, but they don't see them yet? So how can we give them the right tools? And how can we work with other ambassadors across in their communities, in the province, and across Canada that will be able to speak to them?
Yeah, it sounds like the mission of FitSpirit is pretty clear. Curious as to how you go about executing on that mission.
Yeah, well, that was a big thing. And when I first started FitSpirit, like most entrepreneurs, I had to determine whether or not I wanted to make it a business or not. For me, I decided to put together FitSpirit as a charity because I wanted to make sure that I could mobilize as many people as possible around the cause. And it did take a lot of time to pursue, to convince some enterprise like TELUS, Saputo, and so on. But those people are the first one who believed in what we were doing. And in the first place, the revenue model that I want to have in place, I want to be different than most charity. I didn't want to be there and beg for money to people. I want to build a business model that was so top of its league that would speak the same language to other businesses. I didn't want to be this charity going down the street and say, hey, do you want to give me money? No. Hold on. I have a very innovative project. We're speaking specifically to girls. Most of businesses are not able to. We're able to speak their language. We're able to address their problematic. We're able to get them moving. Are you on board? And then they were like, oh, okay. The governance that is in place is top of its league, the finance, everything, And we got a lot of support from the business community, and it still works like this. Until very recently, we didn't have any funding from the government because I was more concerned about the time we would devote on the reporting. And now that we have a team in place that is extremely strong, we can do it.
Yeah. So the way you actually execute on it is by organizing activities for young girls, I believe, right? Is that the main model? And then curious as to the benefit for a business, right? Why would they support, a race of, young adolescents? So I'm curious to hear you out.
Yeah. So two things there. The first one is the way the program is working. We established partnership with schools. So currently we have 300 schools across Quebec and Ontario that are being part of our program. We actually do events and programs in the school itself. For example, in the fall, we have our fall challenge where we invite many girls from across Quebec and they can try different activities here and there. And we give also the schools a challenge for the fall where they can create their own physical activity in support of FitSpirit. So we are working differently there. In this winter and springtime, we do a speaking tour. So within 6 weeks last year, we visited about 20,000 girls. And we speak to them and we motivate them. And we say, you know what, we're here to empower you, and we want to make sure that you can enjoy physical activity as much as we do. And we have all sorts of ambassadors that are going to the school. So imagine the scope of this project. We have about 150 ambassadors that are going to speak to all the schools. So we train them. We make sure that they deliver the right key messages. After that, the girls are invited to train with us for 8 to 10 weeks for their first or 5 or 10 kilometers, and we get them ready. We have ambassadors that are going back to the schools, but just before we deploy the training plan, we also do all the training with the teachers to make sure that the teacher also can offer all sorts of activities in support of it, with FitSpirit. So we have coordinators that are working with each of the schools and help the teachers deploying the program. But at the end, that's a fun part. We have celebrations that are being deployed in Ontario and Quebec. And each event, the main ones have about 4,000 to 5,000 participants each. So Quebec City, Montreal, Toronto. And then we go into the smaller regions as well. But what we're seeing now, which is great, is the girls got to run their 5 and 10K, run or walk, it doesn't matter. There's no ranking, there's no timing involved. And even though I was so competitive before, imagine the difference that it's creating and, the shift on the mindset. I realized that, everything has to be about the girls enjoying the experience. So we have stages that are being built, DJs coming in, and we have lots of activities. We also partner with the Olympic Committee so they can bring different activities and different sport associations as well. But the whole goal is to say, girls, you will have the best time of your life. And you will connect physical activity with something so positive that you will want to do it again and again and again. So when September is coming around, the first thing you will say to your teacher is, when are we starting FitSpirit? So that's what is happening right now for us. And it's so exciting because now FitSpirit is a year-round program, and we offer all the support that the schools and the girls need. And now, with all the leadership that the students are demonstrating, we also offer them training at the same time as we're training our teachers. So the teacher has a very important role, obviously, but the students can also make such a big difference and can be actually real change makers.
Almost like an alumni network to a certain extent.
Yeah, it is.
And what makes the business model innovative? Because it still sounds like it's, a corporation would donate, right? Receive a tax credit. What's different that you think that gives you an advantage over other nonprofits?
When I first started FitSpirit, it was about give me the check and we'll make things happen. Now, the real big difference about the way we're doing our work is how can we work together to make sure that the girls are moving better? So it's not only about the money. Obviously, there's always the funding is important, but how can your employees be involved in all the work we're doing? And so for us, that's really making a really big difference. Acting as volunteers, and also bring their expertise forward. Even if I look at my board of directors, I'm speaking to a lot of my fellow social entrepreneurs, and they ask their board members to raise money. We don't. And the reason why is that all the people that are sitting around the table are experts in their own field, and they're extremely seniors. So I wouldn't want to waste their time on raising money. I want the help on finance. I want to help on legal side. I want to help on HR. This is where I need to use their time. And I think people appreciate that. Recognizing that wherever you involve your people, their mandate is extremely clear. And again, when we went to about 3 years ago, things were changing for FitSpirit in a big way. Well, first off, we were having more employees, which is always good, more senior, more experience. But I was also going personally through some important growth stage, I should say. My closest friend passed away from cancer at that point. But she also asked me to promise her to move this dream of FitSpirit because it was also her dream as far as possible. And just before she passed away, that's when Justin got elected as Prime Minister. I said, you know what? There are a few things I will be doing. And here's the plan. I will try to speak to Sophie Grégoire. I don't know how I'm going to reach out to her, but I will. I'm also going to have a more diverse plan on the fundraising aspect than I was before, so people are more aware about the work that we're doing. And that's when the father-daughter ball happened. We put that together. And then I said, we'll do a major campaign. And that's when the big banks and the big companies came along, and we raised, within 18 months, we raised $11 million.
Wow. Well, and how did you get in contact finally with Sophie Grégoire? Because today she's your spokesperson.
Yeah. Today she's our spokesperson. First off, I looked, common relations that we had, and someone was kind enough to put me in contact to her, because the thing is, it was literally like a race, because everyone wanted to have Sophie as a spokesperson. And she finally accepted to meet me in January. And I said, listen, Sophie, we spoke about FitSpirit, and Sophie is just such a nice human being. We were talking about sports because she's very, very passionate about sport, obviously. She also has young kids. But I think the cause really spoke to her. Her teenage years were not, probably as rough and bumpy as mine. But she really wanted to make a difference. And the fact that she took the cause so seriously really made a difference for us. She was doing a conference in Toronto in front of thousands of people, and she was still talking about FitSpirit, So for us, it's been a great partnership to work with her. It's now been several years. I look back and, oh my God, it seems like yesterday. But she is so devoted to what we're doing, and she so much believed in it. And I think she is one of the key factor of the success that we know today. But obviously there's also many other people that are rolling up their sleeves and are so engaged to make a difference.
Is it easier or harder to continue your growth, right? When you're going to sign a partnership with a school or with a private business for them to be involved? Like, I'm thinking of your flywheel, like how you generate that, continue the growth.
It's interesting because as you move along, as you grow, you also build credibility, right? And so we, for example, we're part of one of the Quebec policy on girls and sports. So we can bring our expertise forward. So our voice is being heard. And now the issue of girls and physical activity is way more recognized as it was 12 years ago. Is it because of FitSpirit? Maybe we're part of the answer, but there are also other players that came along, which is great. Now, when we speak to businesses, there are two things. The reason why they would want to invest in FitSpirit is also the fact that 94% of the women that are making it as executives have played sport in their lives. And we're talking about glass ceiling. There's so many women that are not making it to the top. The goal with FitSpirit is also to build the confidence level of the girls and saying you can do it regardless. So FitSpirit is having those girls evolving in a girls-only environment with the hope of saying, you know what, now that you've enjoyed so much sports, you can do it in a mixed environment with no problem whatsoever, and you will find your place. You will find your place 10 years from now as well in the workplace.
Yeah, it seems like a very, how should I say, rewarding goal, right? Because you're actually helping people. I'm curious as to what do you have as a long-term vision for FitSpirit? Have you set yourself a big, let's say, 10-year goal?
Yeah, we want to be across Canada. We want to reach as many girls as possible. Obviously the population in Ontario is growing awfully fast, so we're hoping to get as many girls there in Quebec as well. But what we want to see is to have this whole mobilization of girls saying physical activity is super important to me. And the fact is, at the end of the day, you go one girl at a time, but it's creating a movement. With them being so strongly connected and sending a message of we want to be active, but we have to do it differently. We are interested, but adapt the offer. And that's when we're helping also the schools to envisioning a different way of bringing sports to girls. And that's when real change is happening. And for me, that's the exciting part. Yeah. So if FitSpirit wanted to disappear, there's something left behind. The system has changed.
Yeah, I'm curious to zoom out and talk about the industry. You kind of mentioned it, Claudine, about industry-wide or regulation changes. Like if you had a magic wand, what kind of law would you enact or regulation would you change to help bolster, your mission? And you can't be more funding for nonprofits.
I know. I think I would definitely with a magic wand, make sure that what we're offering in phys ed classes is different. A lot of sports that we're offering to the girls are very male-oriented. So if the girls are saying in a mixed environment, why are we not offering something that the girls would be interested in and the boys as well? So how can you do a mix of both? Yes, you'll offer still sports that will be more targeted to boys, but can you offer sports that are more targeted to girls that boys will also play with them? Like, do you understand what I mean? So you kind of gain this interest from both parties. So for me, that would be one thing, but obviously the girls still need to have opportunities to be active among themselves. And we see the difference that it's making in all sorts of levels, because I had those girls that never thought they would have a chance one day to be active because they're so overweight and because they're so shy to do so in front of their peer that are the guys, because they're so strong, they're so distant, and they want to please them. Well, you know what? If you're doing it with girls, you'll just have fun, and we don't care. We don't care. And that's a message that is so important. We're there to support one another. The other thing is, if you're thinking about all those new immigrants that are coming in Canada, a lot of them are not allowed to be active. Well, how can they be fully integrated into a community if they cannot participate? So FitSpirit is giving them the chance as well of being active with other girls and giving them this confidence and understanding that sport is also an important part of who we are as Canadians. So there are so many layers to what we're doing, and sometime I'll tell you a quick story, and it's not to do any census release, it's not, the point is not to do something like very big, but I want to share the story because it just shows you that FitSpirit is changing the life of girls in many different ways. I had this pediatricians calling me a month before the celebration of Montreal this year. And she said to me, she shared with me the story of this girl who had been doing FitSpirit for the last 3 years. And she had been sick with leukemia since she was 4. And she had been recovering until 2 years ago. But now things changed, and she was also affected with brain cancer. But she wanted to be part of this FitSpirit celebration so badly that they modified her treatment plan so she could make it. So she had 2 things that were super important for her: St. Justin Hospital and FitSpirit, because it was giving her a chance to be a normal kid. And for me, because I introduced her on stage to the other girls, not to have anyone crying, but to show who are the real heroes, those people that are fighting and want to make sure that they will seize the moment to make it a success. And I will always keep her in mind whenever I do things. And there are many girls that are experiencing struggles in many different ways. But those are the girls who I do it for.
Yeah, it's an incredibly amazing story, Claudine, and I couldn't think of a better way to kind of close off the conversation. It's been incredibly inspiring, so thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Maybe a final question is, where can people find out more about the amazing work you guys are doing?
Yeah, so fitspirit.ca is our website, and I will also invite people to look for our volunteer opportunities, because we need to have the support of many players around us. So thank you very much for the interview.
Thank you, Claudine.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Point of No Return podcast. Don't miss an episode by subscribing on iTunes or Google Play.